Welcome to True Crime Case Files, where we delve into the dark and twisted tales of real-life crimes. Today, we uncover a story of suburban deceit and deadly passion that shocked the community of Cary, North Carolina. This is the case of Charlotte Wilmer, a housewife whose secret love affair with a neighbor's son led to a grisly murder. Charlotte Wilmer was a 43-year-old stay-at-home mom who lived in Cary, North Carolina, an upper-middle-class suburb of Raleigh. Charlotte was very active in her community. She was a member of the local PTA, where she organized fundraisers and events for the school. She was also a devoted member of her church's choir, where she sang every Sunday. Charlotte had a friendly demeanor and was always willing to help others. She was considered a pillar of the community, someone everyone could rely on. Charlotte had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, but those dreams were put on hold when she married Stephen Wilmer, a successful corporate lawyer, and decided to focus on raising their two children, Pekin, aged 13, and Spaghetti, 11. Despite her busy life, Charlotte always found time for her family and friends. Behind her perfect suburban life, Charlotte felt unfulfilled and lonely. Stephen, 46, had been working long hours at his job, dealing with high-profile banks and helping them find legal loopholes to evict people from their homes during the Great Recession. This created a distance between them, and Charlotte often felt like she was living in a gilded cage. She craved excitement and attention, something she wasn't getting at home. In the days before her death, Charlotte was busy with her usual activities. She was planning the church's upcoming Easter event, making decorations and organizing volunteers. She was also seen at the local Starbucks, sipping a latte and chatting with friends. To the outside world, Charlotte seemed happy and content, but inside, she was struggling. Charlotte's personality was warm and welcoming. She had a smile for everyone and a kind word for those in need. Her friends described her as generous and caring. She dreamed of a life where she felt truly loved and appreciated. However, little did anyone know Charlotte had found this attention in the arms of Kevin Spratley-Hughes, the 18-year-old son of her neighbor. Charlotte's secret affair with Kevin provided the thrill she longed for. She documented her feelings and experiences in a hidden journal, expressing the excitement and guilt she felt. In her final days, Charlotte was torn between her duties as a mother and wife and her desire for something more. However, on the morning of May 21, 2013, Charlotte's life would be tragically cut short, leaving the community of Cary in shock and mourning. On the morning of May 21, 2013, around 9:30 a.m., Stephen Wilmer came home early from a business trip to surprise his wife. He had been away in San Francisco for a meeting with a big bank client and took an early flight back to Cary. Expecting to find Charlotte making breakfast for their kids, Stephen instead walked into a scene of horror. When Stephen entered the kitchen, he found Charlotte lying on the floor in a pool of blood. The room was a mess with broken dishes and blood splatters on the walls and floor. Charlotte had been shot and stabbed multiple times. Even more shocking, the number 3-04 was carved into her stomach. Stephen, in complete shock, dropped his suitcase and rushed to her side, but it was clear she was already gone. Stephen immediately called 911. His voice trembled as he told the dispatcher about the scene he had walked into. He kept repeating, she's gone, over and over. The dispatcher tried to keep him calm and instructed him to wait for the police to arrive. Stephen stayed by Charlotte's side, crying and holding her hand, unable to comprehend what had happened. The first police officer arrived within minutes. Officer Jane Miller, who was on patrol nearby, responded to the call. When she entered the house and saw the scene, she was stunned but quickly took control of the situation. She guided Stephen away from the body and secured the area, waiting for the detectives to arrive. Stephen Wilmer was still in shock. He could barely speak as the officers tried to question him about the events leading up to his discovery. He kept saying he couldn't believe this was happening and that Charlotte was gone. Charlotte's body was taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy, while the detectives began their investigation. The news of Charlotte's murder quickly spread through Cary. It was reported on local TV stations like WRAL-TV, and neighbors gathered outside the Wilmer home, trying to understand how such a terrible thing could happen in their quiet community. The Cary police arrived quickly after Stephen Wilmer's 911 call on May 21, 2013. Officer Natara Miller, who was patrolling nearby, was the first on the scene. She found Stephen in a state of shock, holding Charlotte's hand. Officer Miller immediately secured the area and called for backup. Detective Hannah Chung-Dean and Officer Mark Salamanca, both seasoned investigators, arrived soon after. Detective Chung-Dean, known for her meticulous nature, surveyed the chaotic crime scene. The kitchen was a mess. Broken dishes and blood were everywhere. Charlotte had been shot and then stabbed multiple times. The number 304 was carved into her stomach, a chilling and mysterious detail. Detective Chung Dean and Officer Salamanca began their investigation methodically. They photographed the crime scene from every angle, documenting the blood splatters, broken items, and Charlotte's body. They used luminol to detect hidden blood traces and collected fingerprints from surfaces like countertops and doorknobs. DNA samples were taken from various objects, hoping to find something that could identify the killer. The brutality of the attack suggested a crime of passion. Detective Chung Dean considered possible motives. The number carved into Charlotte's stomach seemed personal, as if the killer wanted to send a message. They found no signs of forced entry, suggesting Charlotte knew her attacker. Stephen Wilmer was taken to the police station for further questioning. Still in shock, he struggled to provide coherent answers. Detective Chung Dean knew they needed to tread carefully with him. They asked about his recent business trip, his relationship with Charlotte, and if she had any enemies. Stephen mentioned his long work hours and their strained marriage, but denied any involvement in her death. The forensic team continued to gather evidence. They found a partially burnt diary in the fireplace, which contained entries too charred to be legible. This discovery added a new layer to the investigation, revealing something that might possibly be the motive behind the murder. The police also canvassed the neighborhood, interviewing neighbors and searching for witnesses. Some neighbors mentioned hearing loud noises the night before, but didn't think much of it. Others spoke highly of Charlotte and her involvement in the community, expressing shock that such a tragedy could occur. Local news stations like WRAL-TV reported the murder, and the community of Cary was gripped by fear and curiosity. Detective Chung Dean knew they had to solve this case quickly to bring peace to the neighborhood and justice for Charlotte Wilmer. The first person the police investigated was Stephen Wilmer, Charlotte's husband. Stephen, 46, was a successful corporate lawyer known for his stern, no-nonsense attitude. He worked long hours with high-profile banks, often helping them to find legal loophole that would allow them to evict people from their homes during the Great Recession. This demanding job had created a distance between him and Charlotte. Despite this, Stephen was deeply committed to his family and had no known history of violence. After discovering Charlotte's body on the morning of May 21, 2013, Stephen was in a state of shock. He called 911 immediately and was visibly shaken when the police arrived. Detective Hannah Chung Dean and Officer Mark Salamanca knew they needed to question Stephen thoroughly. They took him to the police station to get his statement. At the station, Stephen sat in a small, sterile interrogation room. He was pale and had dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. Detective Chung Dean started with basic questions about his trip to New York City, his relationship with Charlotte, and their family life. Stephen explained that he had been away on a business trip and returned early to surprise Charlotte. He described their marriage as strained, but insisted he would never harm her. Stephen's responses were cooperative but filled with grief. He repeatedly stated his love for Charlotte and his devastation over her death. He admitted that their relationship had been difficult lately due to his long hours at work. But he denied any involvement in her murder. Stephen's lawyer, a sharp attorney, sat beside him, ensuring that Stephen's rights were protected throughout the interrogation. The police also looked into Stephen's alibi. They verified his flight details and confirmed he had indeed been in San Francisco for a meeting with a major bank. His colleagues and clients backed up his story, providing a solid alibi for the time of the murder. Despite Stephen's cooperation and strong alibi, Detective Chung Dean and her team still had to consider him a suspect. The brutality of the crime suggested a personal motive, and as Charlotte's husband, Stephen was a primary person of interest. However, without any concrete evidence linking him to the scene, the police had to continue their investigation and look into other potential suspects. The next suspect the police investigated was Kevin Spratley-Hughes, the 18-year-old son of Charlotte's neighbor. Kevin had just graduated from high school and was planning to major in engineering. He was well-liked in the community, known for his charm and good looks. However, a secret affair between him and Charlotte had recently come to light, adding a new twist to the investigation. Detective Hannah Chung Dean and Officer Mark Salamanca called Kevin in for questioning. Kevin arrived at the police station looking nervous. He sat in the interrogation room, fidgeting with his hands. The detectives started by asking him about his relationship with Charlotte. Kevin admitted to the affair but claimed it was consensual and that he loved her. He said that Charlotte had provided him with attention and excitement he couldn't find elsewhere. When asked about his whereabouts on the night of May 20, Kevin said he was at home playing video games. He mentioned specific games like Grand Theft Auto 5, which was popular at the time. However, his alibi was weak since he was alone and had no one to confirm his story. Kevin's behavior during the interrogation was erratic. At times he was calm, but he also showed bursts of anger and frustration. When detectives pressed him about the affair, he became defensive, insisting he would never hurt Charlotte. He talked about their relationship, describing it as passionate but not violent. The police found Kevin's nervousness suspicious and decided to search his home. They obtained a warrant and conducted a thorough search of his room. They found several explicit love letters from Charlotte and some naked photos of them together, further confirming their relationship. However, they didn't find any physical evidence linking Kevin to the murder. Neighbors reported seeing Kevin acting strangely in the days following Charlotte's death. Some said he seemed agitated and jumpy. Others mentioned he was less friendly and more withdrawn than usual. The police took note of these observations but needed more concrete evidence to make an arrest. The community was shocked by the revelation of the affair. The once charming boy next door was now under a cloud of suspicion. Detective Chung Dean knew they had to dig deeper into Kevin's background and relationship with Charlotte to uncover the truth. While Kevin's affair with Charlotte provided a possible motive, the police still needed more evidence to link him directly to the murder. They continued their investigation, knowing that solving this case required careful scrutiny of every detail. The third suspect the police investigated was Georgette Spratley-Hughes, Charlotte's best friend and next-door neighbor. Georgette, 43, was a stay-at-home mom who shared almost everything with Charlotte. She was also passionate about running the choir at their church. Recently, Georgette had grown suspicious of Charlotte's behavior, fearing it might affect their friendship and her family, though she completely unaware of Charlotte's affair with her son Kevin. Detective Hannah Chung Dean and Officer Mark Salamanca called Georgette in for questioning. Georgette arrived at the station looking worried but composed. In the small interrogation room, Detective Chung Dean asked Georgette about her relationship with Charlotte. Georgette spoke fondly of Charlotte, describing her as a dear friend and confidant. However, Georgette admitted she had noticed Charlotte acting strangely in recent months and had been concerned. When asked about her whereabouts on the night of May 20, Georgette said she was at home, preparing for the upcoming church event. She mentioned specific tasks like making decorations and organizing a volunteer list, tasks she could verify with other church members. Georgette's alibi seemed solid, but the detectives pressed further. Detective Chung Dean asked Georgette if she knew about Charlotte's affair with Kevin. Georgette was shocked and visibly upset. She insisted she had no idea about the affair and that she would have never condoned such behavior. Her reaction appeared genuine, and the detectives noted her distress. The police then asked Georgette if she had any reason to harm Charlotte. Georgette vehemently denied any motive, stating that she loved Charlotte like a sister and would never hurt her. She became emotional, tears welling up in her eyes, and continued to deny any involvement in Charlotte's death. To corroborate Georgette's alibi, the detectives interviewed other members of the church choir. They confirmed that Georgette had been working on church preparations that night. Additionally, neighbors reported seeing Georgette at home, further supporting her account. Despite Georgette's solid alibi, the police still had to consider her a suspect due to her close relationship with both Charlotte and Kevin. They searched Georgette's house for any evidence, but found nothing linking her to the murder. The community of Cary was shaken as local news stations, including WRAL-TV, Raleigh's local news leader, reported on Georgette's questioning, casting suspicion on another pillar of the community. Detective Chung Dean and Officer Salamanca continued to investigate, knowing that Georgette's strong alibi and lack of evidence made it difficult to link her to the crime. They needed to explore every possible angle to uncover the truth behind Charlotte Wilmers' brutal murder. On the morning of May 25, 2013, a break in the case came with a surprising discovery. It was a sunny day in Cary, and Detective Hannah Chung Dean received a call from a local resident named Yeria Johnson. Yeria was walking her dog in a nearby park when she found a small, leather-bound journal partially buried under a bush. She quickly reported it to the police, thinking it might be connected to the recent murder. Detective Chung Dean and Officer Mark Salamanca rushed to the park to retrieve the journal. They carefully placed it in an evidence bag and took it back to the station for examination. The journal turned out to be a photocopy of Charlotte Wilmers' secret diary, but one that was too burnt to be able to read, containing detailed and graphic entries about her affair with Kevin Spratley-Hughes. It also included her thoughts and feelings about her marriage and her sense of loneliness. The diary entries revealed that Charlotte had been planning to end the affair with Kevin. She felt guilty about betraying her family and wanted to focus on repairing her marriage and her church work. In addition, Charlotte noted strange changes in Kevin's behavior. She described how he thought he was lighted by the angel's light, and how he badgered her to have sex with him 40 times a day. The last entry, dated May 19, mentioned her intention to meet Kevin to break off the relationship. This new evidence shifted the focus of the investigation. Detective Chung Dean and her team realized that Kevin's obsession with Charlotte might have driven him to murder her when she tried to end things. The diary also included several entries describing how Charlotte seduced Kevin by bathing naked in her backyard, which had a direct line of sight to his bedroom. These entries painted a calculated and disturbing picture of their intense and tumultuous relationship. The police decided to bring Kevin in for further questioning. They confronted him with the diary entries, hoping to get a reaction. Kevin initially denied everything, but when faced with the detailed descriptions of their affair, he broke down. He admitted to being in love with Charlotte and feeling devastated when she wanted to end things. Detective Chung Dean noticed that Kevin's behavior was erratic and decided to have him undergo a psychological evaluation. The results indicated that Kevin might be suffering from an undiagnosed bipolar disorder, which could explain his extreme reactions and mood swings. This information added a new layer to the investigation, suggesting that Kevin's mental state could have played a role in the crime. The community of Cary was eager for answers, and the pressure on the police to solve the case increased. Detective Chung Dean and her team continued to piece together the evidence, knowing they were closer to uncovering the truth behind Charlotte Wilmers' tragic death. On May 26, 2013, the police made a breakthrough in the case. After reviewing Charlotte Wilmers' diary and conducting a psychological evaluation of Kevin Spratley-Hughes, the evidence pointed clearly to him as the prime suspect. Detective Hannah Chung Dean and Officer Mark Salamanca decided it was time to bring Kevin in for a formal arrest. Kevin Spratley-Hughes, 18, was known for his charm and good looks, but the investigation revealed a darker side. Kevin had fallen deeply in love with Charlotte, and when she tried to end their affair, he couldn't handle it. His undiagnosed bipolar disorder likely contributed to his extreme reaction. Kevin had become possessive and obsessed with Charlotte, and the thought of losing her drove him to a fit of rage. The murder occurred on the night of May 20. Kevin had gone to the Wilmer house for sex, knowing Stephen was away on a business trip. Charlotte let him in, intending to end the relationship. An argument ensued, escalating quickly. Kevin, overwhelmed by his emotions, shot Charlotte and then stabbed her multiple times. The number 304 carved into her stomach was a final twisted act of control. On the morning of May 26, around 10 a.m., the police arrived at the Spratley-Hughes home to arrest Kevin. Detective Chung Dean led the team. They knocked on the door, and Georgette Spratley-Hughes answered, shocked to see the police. Kevin was inside, and when he saw the officers, he tried to run but was quickly apprehended. Kevin's reaction to the arrest was a mix of surprise and resignation. He didn't resist but looked defeated, knowing his actions had caught up with him. He was handcuffed and taken to the police station. During the ride, he remained silent, staring blankly ahead. The news of Kevin's arrest spread quickly through Cary. Local TV stations, including WRAL-TV, reported the developments. The community was in shock, especially those who knew Kevin as the charming boy next door. The Wilmer family, devastated by Charlotte's death, expressed relief that the murderer had been caught. They were grateful to the police for their hard work, but still struggled with their loss. At the police station, Kevin was booked and charged with first-degree murder. He confessed to the crime during interrogation, detailing how his love for Charlotte had turned into an uncontrollable obsession. He admitted that when Charlotte tried to break up with him, he snapped and killed her in a fit of rage. Kevin's arrest brought some closure to the community, but the pain of losing Charlotte Wilmer lingered. Her family and friends tried to move forward, but the memory of that tragic night remained fresh in their minds. The trial of Kevin Spratley-Hughes began on July 15, 2013, at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with members of the Cary community, including Charlotte Wilmers' family and friends. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Maria Benedetti, a 50-year-old seasoned lawyer known for her tough stance on violent crimes. Maria presented a strong case, detailing how Kevin's obsession with Charlotte had driven him to commit the murder. Maria Benedetti described the brutal nature of the crime, emphasizing the shooting and stabbing, as well as the number 304 carved into Charlotte's stomach. She brought in forensic experts to explain the evidence collected at the scene, including DNA and fingerprints linking Kevin to the crime. She also presented entries from Charlotte's diary, which documented her affair with Kevin and her plans to end it. The defense attorney, Franklin Boone, was a 43-year-old lawyer known for his calm and methodical approach. He argued that Kevin's undiagnosed bipolar disorder played a significant role in his actions. Franklin called in medical experts who testified about Kevin's mental state, explaining how his condition could have led to a loss of control. He also highlighted Kevin's young age and lack of prior criminal record, suggesting that he deserved leniency. Throughout the trial, Charlotte Wilmers' family watched with heavy hearts. Her husband, Stephen, and their children often broke down in tears as they listened to the details of her murder. The community members who attended the trial showed their support for the Wilmer family, hoping for justice to be served. After weeks of testimonies and deliberations, the jury reached a verdict. On August 12, 2013, Kevin Spratley-Hughes was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent as the sentence was read, and Kevin showed little emotion, accepting his fate with a blank stare. The verdict brought a sense of closure to Charlotte's family and friends, but the pain of losing her remained. They believed the punishment was just, given the brutality of the crime and the impact it had on their lives. The community of Cary felt a mix of relief and sorrow, knowing that justice had been served but that they had lost a cherished member of their community. Local news stations like WRAL-TV covered the trial extensively, highlighting the emotional journey of the Wilmer family and the community's response to the verdict. The trial and its outcome were discussed in homes, schools, and churches, as everyone tried to make sense of the tragedy that had shaken their quiet suburb. After the trial of Kevin Spratley-Hughes concluded, life in Cary began to slowly return to normal, though the scars of Charlotte Wilmer's murder still lingered. For the Wilmer family, the verdict brought a sense of closure, knowing that Kevin would spend the rest of his life behind bars for taking Charlotte away from them. Stephen Wilmer focused on rebuilding his life and supporting his children, who struggled with the loss of their mother. The community rallied around the Wilmer family, offering support and comfort in various forms. Neighbors organized meal trains and childcare assistance, easing the burden on Stephen as he adjusted to being a single parent. The local church, where Charlotte had been an active member, held memorial services in her honor, celebrating her life and the impact she had on others. Meanwhile, Georgette Spratley-Hughes faced her own challenges. As Kevin's mother and Charlotte's best friend, Georgette was devastated by the betrayal and the loss of both her son and her closest confidant. She withdrew from church activities and community events, choosing instead to focus on supporting Kevin through letters and occasional visits to the prison. Kevin, now incarcerated at Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina, adjusted to life behind bars. He received counseling and medication for his bipolar disorder, aiming to manage his condition while serving his sentence. Although he expressed remorse for his actions, Kevin understood the severity of his crime and the impact it had on Charlotte's family and the community. The community of Cary remained vigilant but began to move forward, cherishing the memories of Charlotte Wilmer while looking ahead to brighter days. The tragic events of May 2013 had left an indelible mark, but through unity and resilience, Cary continued to be a close-knit suburb where neighbors supported one another through life's challenges. Thank you for joining us on this episode of True Crime Case Files. The story of Charlotte Wilmer reminds us of the hidden struggles and dangerous secrets that can lie beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect lives. Tune in next time as we uncover another chilling tale from the annals of true crime.